All right, everyone. Let's get started. Welcome to Applying the C-L Psychiatry Fellowships in 2026, a virtual Q&A presented by the American Psychiatric Association and the Academy for Consultation-Liaison Psychiatry. My name is Chandan Kandai at UT Southwestern Dallas, Texas, and I'll be your moderator for this afternoon. Just know that this webinar is being recorded and will be posted online for later viewing. So, quick overview of the webinar for today. We're first going to spend just a few minutes talking about why C-L Psychiatry, the application timeline and process, and match data to hopefully reassure you all. And then we're going to introduce our esteemed C-L Fellowship Director panel for Q&A. And the majority of the time is going to be live moderated Q&A with y'all as our attendees. So in general, why CL? We get asked this question a lot. So part of the reason I love CL, and we all love CL, is that there's so many different facets. A lot of us are familiar with inpatient consults. So that's more of like general consult psychiatry, which you get like in the hospital setting. But there's also emergency psychiatry, women's mental health and perinatal psychiatry for pregnant patients, psycho-oncology with our cancer care colleagues, transplant, cardiac neuropsychiatry, addictions consults, pain psychiatry, burns and trauma, HIV/AIDS, pediatric consults for our child psych colleagues, the proactive CL model, integrating collaborative care models on the outpatient side, even palliative care and geriatric psychiatry. So really any aspect of medicine, CL can intersect with. So there's so many fascinating things people can be doing. Also, CL plays a huge role for social justice and advocacy. So we know that patients with psychiatric substance use disorders are underserved in our general medical system. We also know that minorities and underserved patients are underserved in the mental health system. So CL psychiatry serves a really important role in redressing these disparities. Because we're an embedded role within the larger healthcare system, we often serve as an entry point for vulnerable patients into mental health treatment. And there's also just a lot of opportunities for advocacy and education of our physician peers and healthcare staff. So CL is great, but why CL Fellowship? So it is required for the ABPN Consultation Liaison Psychiatry Board. So to sit for the boards, you have to have done now a fellowship in CL Psychiatry. It also provides an additional year to transition from being a trainee to an attending. And you also get a lot of opportunities for subspecialized training, such as women's mental health, psycho-oncology, transplant psychiatry, critical care, and get whole new exposure to models of care that you may not have ever seen before, like embedded clinics, collaborative care models, e-consults, proactive models. So it's just a great growing year. But just to take another esteemed colleague's opinion, so Dr. Samuel Greenstein, after graduating from residency, he became a CL attending at University of Cincinnati. He was teaching residents, medical students without formal fellowship training. So it is possible to do this. And so he did this for 3 years. Then he wanted to go back east, and he wanted to continue to pursue becoming a training director while clinically working and teaching in the CL field. But New York academic programs wanted him fellowship trained despite already having worked in the field for 3 years. So he essentially decided to go backwards, and he wrote about it in 2022 in a really amazing MD Edge essay. So I'm going to leave you all with this quote. The decision to pursue fellowship is a personal choice. I believe that CL as a subspecialty will demonstrate its importance to both the psychiatric and medical fields. CL fellowships can continue to innovate and move forward by recognizing the changing landscape of CL psychiatry and matching a fellowship experience to those needs. This will only make the draw for fellowship more powerful. 4 years ago, I did not want to pursue fellowship. Today, I'm truly grateful I did. So just some quick notes about the timeline. So really around now is when you all should be contacting programs, asking about CL fellowships, any questions you may have. Basically, next month onwards, July 1st, September, you're going to be completing and sending out your CL fellowship applications, and know that they're on a rolling cycle. So the sooner you get them done, the better. September for November, this is really your fellowship interview season. So a bit different than residency in medical school, a little bit earlier. December 16th, rank lists are due for both applicants and programs. And we'll be talking about the ranking process in a bit. And then January 6th of next year, that's when you have the CL fellowship match. So when looking at programs and trying to choose which fellowship, lots of different things to look for, but just a short list of things to consider. Like think about geographic location. Do you want to be in the Midwest, the South, East Coast, West Coast? Think about reputation. Like of the fellowship itself, but also what's the reputation of the residency, because you'll be working with a lot of residents, of the psychiatry department, of the medical center as a whole. Whatever number of fellows per year. Do you want to be the one fellow a year and get all the attention? Would you like to have co-fellows during the year as well? What's the general council volume, workflow, and team composition? Does everybody round as one big team? Do people do it in more of like attending and fellow model individual teams? What are the clinical experiences like inpatient versus outpatient? And especially if you have a particular interest, say like in critical care psychiatry or HIV psychiatry, collaborative care, does it provide that? In terms of didactics and extra clinical opportunities, are there opportunities to get specific training in things like collaborative integrated care or like ethics training, for example? What is the academic time like? Will you have time off to go to conferences like ACLP or APA? Do you get specific reimbursement for educational costs? Are there opportunities for research or teaching? If you just want time off, because we're all human, right? Like, how does it work to get like vacation, illness time, parental leave, conferences? What are well-being resources? What's the culture on advocacy and social justice at your institution? And does it jive with what you want for yourself and your future career? Are there specific faculty and supervisors you want to work with? And last but not least, are there opportunities for moonlighting? Because things are expensive and like we've all got needs and wants. So we recommend around this time of year, you can contact each program interested and just give a brief and professional email indicating your interest and just requesting additional information, such as, do you want ERAS or institutional application? Do you want a separate file, one big attachment for materials if you're sending it to them directly? Are they doing virtual or in-person interviews, which we'll talk about in a bit? Are IMGs allowed at the program? So this is an example email from literally when I did it back in 2017. And so I just went, Dear Dr. Shah, she was the program director at Brigham at the time. Hello, hope this finds you well. I'm applying for C-L Fellowship this summer and wanted to email you for my strong interest in Brigham's fellowship. Also wanted to ask you, please send me any formal application materials and requirements as directed on the website. Looking forward to applying to the fellowship. Have a nice weekend. Sincerely, me back when I was a PGY4 at Northwestern. So things to keep in mind, continuing for this year, fellowship programs are going to have the option to use either the ERAS application and or the institutional application, like their own forms or ACLP's common app. So if you're using the institutional application, so that's like the homebrew, like form for school, these are usually just direct email directly to programs. And it may include any or all of the following. It really depends from place to place. There's a common ACLP fellowship application, or they may have their institutional GME forms. They'll be asking for a personal statement, a CV, free letters of recommendation, including one from your residency program director, licensure forms like your state and DEA. Some may even ask for your medical degree or your medical school dean's letter, a USMLE or COMLEX score report, and especially for international audience, like ECFMG certificate and visa paperwork if applicable. For the Canadian audience, just know that Canadian residents who've passed licensing exam requirements in Canada are eligible for USCL fellowships too. Yay! So if you decide to use ERAS, we've been using this since 2023, 2024. Most programs are also using ERAS. What you want to do is you have to obtain an ERAS token from your home institution beginning like June 5th, and then register your token and gain access to My ERAS. You can begin submitting applications really like this coming week, like July 1st. And then C-L Fellowship is going to be reviewing applications by July 15th. And you can upload most application materials centrally into ERAS, including headshot, experiences, personal statement, letters of recommendation, score reports, and your CV. And just know that this year, C-L has opted into geographic signals. And for the first year, we're going to be doing institutional signals. We'll have 3 for this season. So in terms of interviews, just brief overview, ACLP continues to recommend virtual interviews, but programs may choose to do hybrid format. So it's another thing you may want to ask programs directly about. You want to be thinking about doing interviews, like, are you going to be doing these as interview academic days? Are you going to be doing them as vacation days? So just plan ahead. Interviewer invites are going to go out, so reply promptly. Especially like you don't want to sit on it for a few days because when we reply back, the interview date that you want may be gone. September, November, remember, these are interviews. Super fun. Honestly, one of my favorite parts of the application season. Some general tips. You want to ensure a quiet place of good Wi-Fi and lighting for virtual interviews. You want to create a list of questions you may want to ask during the interview, which will help make sure that you ask the same questions for all the interviews if this is what's important to you. You want to keep a copy of your application for each program and know what you said. I had a really embarrassing experience where I was interviewing for a program and they talked about webinar I had done, and I was like, I don't remember doing that, but I said that part out loud, which was really awkward. So please make sure you view your application, know what you did and what you wrote down. You also want to have PDFs or CV and publication available if needed to send to interviewers, because it is great to be like, oh yeah, I was a co-author on this paper. Oh, hey, can I read it? Yeah. Zoink, send for email directly. And always, always be sure to thank the program post-interview. Like, be a good person. So remember, regardless of ERAS or institutional applications, all fellowships are using the NRMP match process. So you're going to want to register or re-register early for the NRMP match. So that's going to open October 14th. November 4th, rank list opens. So after interviews, you want to send your NRMP number to programs. December 16th is the rank order list deadline for all applicants and programs, and then match day is January 6th. So now you've had post-match. First, congratulations, you've matched into the bestest fellowship in all the land. Things you want to start thinking about, like what's the start date of fellowship orientation versus the finish date of residency? My residency had actually finished after my fellowship orientation was to begin, so I actually had to take the last week of residency as vacation to literally get to my fellowship orientation on time. You're going to want to start thinking ahead of time, like, are there permanent license? This is a new state license needed, and is DA mandatory? Word to the wise, some states like Illinois, Texas, New York, they take a long, long time to process like license transfers and new licenses. So you want to start that as soon as possible. If you're going to be relocating, think about housing. Like, are you going to be buying versus renting? What neighborhoods do you want to live in? Are you going to be using a car versus do you want to take public transit? What are the benefits you got to sign up for, like healthcare, vacation, disability? You've got to think ahead of time about finding a new doctor, dentist, therapist, bank, childcare, house of worship, etc. And is there going to be a moving allowance, and how does that work? So we always recommend to reach out to current fellows and faculty for advice, because we want to make sure that this transition goes well for you. So this is a very large spreadsheet. Part of the reason I put it up was to show you that this was a lot of work, but some big takeaways to get from this, like ever since we started in the match, like in 2014 going onwards, there has been consistently more fellowship spots than applicants, and most applicants get the first or second choice. So do not be stressed out by the overall statistics of matching into CL fellowship. This really is a buyer's market. It is very, very different than applying to psychiatry residency, certainly even applying to medical school. Because this is a lot of numbers, I made graphs. So you can see here, like in the gold are just CL fellowship positions, slowly, steadily rising over the years. But still below that, every single year are CL fellowship applicants. We just have more spots than applicants. If you look on the right, you see the percent of CL applicant choices who match in the first or second choice. It is well above 70% and sometimes gets all the way up to like 90% close. So again, more fellowship spots than applicants, and most applicants get the first or second choice. If you do not trust me, at least trust Excel, okay? So some things about the demographics. So looking at the best data we have from like 2014 to 2024, we're seeing like slowly increasing diversity within CL fellowship applicants, but certainly more work is needed, especially when compared to the psychiatry residency population and also just the American general population. So where can you get some more information about CL and learning about our awesome field? So the APA, American Psychiatric Association, has a Consultation-Liaison Psychiatry homepage. Another great resource the APA has is the Council on C-L Psychiatry, of which I'm lucky to be the chair for this year. ACLP, our subspecialty society, has a whole residents and fellows section, which has a directory of match participating CL fellowships and a link to the common CLP fellowship application. There's a trainee mentorship program for residents. The application for that is due September 30th. I highly, highly recommend it because it's a great way to get like one-on-one mentorship as you're going through this process, or even just thinking about applying into CL and developing your career. We also have a trainee travel award and the web fellowship, which helps pay for you to get to the annual CL meeting. And those are both due July 1st of every year. So that's coming up really soon. ACLP also has a early career psychiatrist SIG, so a special interest group, and listserv, which is a great, great resource for work interacting with other trainees and early career psychiatrists. And Facebook, not just for our moms. We also have a CL Psychiatry Educational Network, or CL Pen, which is a great online physician-only Facebook group to just talk about interesting cases, learn more about finding jobs, like networking. Great resource we always recommend. So now on to the highlight of this evening, which is our Q&A. So just a quick introduction to our awesome panel. So first we have Dr. Aidan Taylor. She's the C-L Psychiatry Fellowship Director at Brigham and Women's Hospital in Boston, Massachusetts. Next we have Dr. Rubiana Vaughn. She's the C-L Psychiatry Fellowship Director at Montefiore Einstein in New York City. Next we have Dr. Morgan Fader, C-L Psychiatry Fellowship Director at University of Pittsburgh. Next, we have Justin Smith, C.L. Psychiatry Fellowship Director at University of Virginia. Lujain Alhaji, C.L. Psychiatry Fellowship Director, University of Miami, Florida. Theda Thant, C.L. Psychiatry Fellowship Director at University of Colorado. And Dr. Tom Soprano, C.L. Psychiatry Fellowship Director at University of Washington. And then there's me. I'm just a guy who works at UT Southwestern, Dallas, Texas. So now we have time for Q&A. I'm going to stop sharing my slides for now. So if you'd like a question, please use the Q&A function in the chat, and we'll answer questions as they come in. We're also going to start some of the pre-sent questions that y'all sent us. So panel, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us this fine Sunday afternoon. First question I wanted to post y'all, a perennial favorite comes up every year, is why CL Psychiatry?
I think there's people have some great answers to that. I think a lot of it was in the slides, but I think there's a whole world of CL that you're not exposed to as a resident, and you don't even realize it somewhat until you kind of get into fellowship. And so I don't know about other programs, but I know at University of Colorado, we have multiple elective options that are not available to residents. So like our transplant psychiatry, neuropalliative, palliative care immersions, acute PM&R, like, long COVID clinics. There's a lot of this work that just like isn't there. And then I think as a fellow, you get to really kind of move past just learning how to kind of churn through consults and get through the day, right? And start to get to that higher level. How do I kind of lead services, navigate really complex situations? How do I run the kind of multi-D ethics? Like some of these things that you watch your attendings do as residents, but may have less opportunity to do. So I'll stop talking at this point.
I also think if anyone's interested in academic psychiatry, that doing a CEL fellowship is really important because most academic institutions are going to require a CEL fellowship training and possibly ABPN boards in CEL to be considered or hired as a CEL psychiatrist in their faculty. So it's definitely a big plus in that sense. Or if you're not interested in academics and let's say long term you see yourself in a private clinic or working in the community, having that training can give you the leg up. So I'll give an example of a previous fellow who graduated, who went into a private telehealth. She requested to see all their perinatal referrals. And they gave it to her because she had the CL fellowship training and had that experience. So I add that to Tito's answer.
I know for me, when I was applying, I really wanted to lean into my physician identity. This idea that I want to be a doctor for my whole career and I want to lean into learning more about medicine and expand my medical sophistication. And I think this year really allows you to do that during your fellowship year, just to have these exceptional experiences like Theta was saying, and really lean into some of the more challenging cases that prepare you for wherever you end up going. I think all of us can probably relate to this as you get through out into the world with CL experience. You realize people really look to CL psychiatrists as those who have the the medical chops that can really handle the challenging cases. And so I think that's a great outcome for CL fellows.
Yeah, I think my initial reaction is, well, we do it because it's the best. But to expand on what everybody else has said, which I completely agree with, I think this CL fellowship really prepares you to be able to do almost anything and to be able to switch what you're doing. CL is a really broad field, as well as being it has the potential to be very specialized or to be very broad. And you can work within CL within so many different domains. You can be either, primarily a liaison psychiatrist where you're working with a lot of different medical specialties, or you can be primarily a consultant and you can do so many different things. And when you get bored of what you're doing, then you can go do something else, and it can be completely different and yet still within CL. And you can be, you can be still prepared for having to for being able to do that. Forgive me, I'm still on call and my brain is mush. It prepares you for any number of things that you can do. And if you are drawn to CL, as many of us are, by the fact that you can do 10 things at once and still enjoy it, this may be attractive to you in that you will be able to switch what you're doing several times during your career and still be practicing the specialty that you trained to do.
All right. No, thank you. Thanks, panel. Already getting a flare of questions in Q&A, so we'll just get into it. First question, how do you recommend addressing like an application red flag, like a low step score?
I can take that one. So I think it's really helpful to just have a planned response because it's something that will likely come up in your interview day. And making sure you practice that response so you can come off as confident, professional, not feeling like you're being defensive. And just explain, right? We're all humans, we're all psychiatrists. We understand that there's so many different factors that go into how you felt on that particular morning that took your boards. And so I think just recognizing that this is something that happens to a lot of people, even folks who who are now chairs of psychiatry, right? Like not everybody is a great test taker, and just putting it into the context that you had a human moment and we want to hear about it and sort of, move on and also help you prepare so that you can make sure that you pass your boards after you finish training.
Thank you, Dr. Vela. All right. Moving on to next question. So a couple specific questions regarding your ERAS application. Should we add presentations we did for our program as scholarly work, or is it recommended to skip these? And then should we add a presentation as well as its published abstract as separate entries? What do you think, PDs?
I guess like what I would say to that is that I think that you should add any experiences that you think have been meaningful to you. And I think that like Shandon said, like being really thoughtful about what are those like experiences that you really think that you can really talk about, you've really engaged in, you can kind of like show your excitement during the interview. So I think it can be like from a lot of different buckets. I think it could be presentations you've done nationally. I think it could be presentations you've done more locally, but I think if there are presentations or projects that you've been involved in and they're really meaningful to you, I think you should definitely include them. And again, be mindful about including things that you know that you can really speak to during your interview day. For the second question about whether you should list, I guess, papers and like your abstracts separately. I guess my advice around that would maybe be, and others can say, if they feel differently. But I think if it's probably about the same project, then you would kind of like include that all as one listing. And there's options, there's like a free response section. So there's options to kind of like provide a little bit more detail on that project. And so that might be an opportunity for you to kind of like talk about the different aspects of that project. But I would say that if like the two scholarly works that came out of that project are kind of like around the same thing, then I would just include that in the same listing.
I,
I
I'd like
agree.
to,
I would list things once, and I would also, if you want to, if the M&M or Journal Club or whatever it is something that you're really excited about and want to talk about, go ahead and list it, but be really clear what it is. Be clear that it's something you're really excited about talking about, and that's why it's on there, as opposed to you're padding your CV. Because we can tell if what it is that you're just trying to put more stuff on there. But if it's something that you really want to talk about, then hey, we're happy to talk about that with you. And enthusiasm is infectious. So please do put it on there. Just don't put it on there for the sake of putting it on there.
kind of in line with what John Donne presented in terms of the statistics around this whole process, it's probably worth providing a slight paradigm shift, Unlike residency, this is a lot less of a filtering process, and, at least my primary goal is to really just get to know the applicant. So anything that contributes to us really being able to get a sense of what you're about and where your strengths are, and frankly also what you're looking to develop in your fellowship. That's what I'm trying to figure out in the interview process. Like, do I have things that I can offer you, or frankly, should I suggest another program that will better meet your needs? We want people who want to be at our programs, and getting to know you really personally is kind of the primary goal. It's much less of a filtering kind of like, oh, like answer this correctly or have the most number of items on your CV. So I would kind of shift the way you might be thinking about the application process as a whole.
Mhm. Sure. Great answers, all. Kind of moving along with the application questions, like question we have, how should we think about the fellowship personal statement compared to the residency personal statement? At this stage, our programs mostly looking for clear why CL, why now, what next, versus like a broader personal story about becoming a psychiatrist. Like, what do y'all want?
I mean, personally, I like when personal statements are professional, objective to the point, but also show who you really are as an applicant, right? Why are you applying to CL at this time? And maybe expand on some areas that you're excited about in fellowship if you know that already. If not, that's totally fine. But let's say if you already know that you want to do perinatal psychiatry or psych-oncology, great, put that in your personal statement. If there's any meaningful experiences that you've had, during your residency training, or, a specific patient that really made an impact on you, feel free to include that as well. Some people ask me, well, how long should my personal statement be? I'll say maybe a page is great. A little bit more than a page, sure, but keep it nice and short, I would say. And again, if there's anything that you want to address from your application, for example, to the previous question, like a low step score, you're also welcome to include that in your personal statement, if you so wish.
Yeah, and I second that. And I think part of that question too was like, should you include like why you became a psychiatrist? And it's like one of those where it's like you can. I think if it's definitely part of your larger journey and part like somehow feeds very specifically maybe into why then CL makes sense, and maybe this is an interest you've had since you want to become a psychiatrist. But I don't feel strongly, that you need to include like all of that in this personal statement. I think the comment was right. It's a lot about, yeah, we're trying to get to, again, going back to Tom's point, we want to get to know you. We want to understand why you want to do this. It's sort of in many ways, an optional year. And we'd like to know that you fit in our program, that you like us, and vice versa. And that's really a big part of the personal statement this time around.
Yeah, this is an elective year. You should be fully authentic, and I don't think that's gonna not serve you. I think we need to know what you want and also what you offer, and I think the more authentic you can be about that, the better.
Again, moving along, just marching for ERES at this point now. Like, Geographic preferences, we just started doing them last year as a field. Do programs see how many geographic preferences we put, like whether we selected 1 versus 2 versus 3? Meaning if we have a strong geographic preference, is it better to only select that one? Or is it okay to select another preference for also applying to programs in another region and would be happy there, though it's not our first preference? So correct me if I'm wrong, PDs, but like only programs in that geographic region see that geographic preference, correct? Like if I applied to like a theta in Colorado, she wouldn't see that my preference is for like the mid-Atlantic. Like it just wouldn't show up.
Yeah, my understanding is like we see mid-Atlantic, but we don't see whatever isn't mid-Atlantic, right? Yeah. So,
Mhm.
yeah. So yeah, if you put a geographic preference, the people in that geographic preference see it, but not outside of it. So,
I mean, correlate question to that panel, like, has it really swayed your decision to interview an applicant or not if they put a geographic preference or not for y'all?
Like you're putting with the statistics, frankly, most programs interview most applicant, like a large majority, if not all. I think there's probably a very small percentage of programs that don't interview everybody, in my understanding. Please correct me if I'm wrong from everybody.
and for us, the geographic preference is almost meaningless because we're technically mid-Atlantic, but Pittsburgh is not really mid-Atlantic, even though it's part of Pennsylvania. So, and we interview almost everybody. So,
It's like Mid-East, Middle East,
uh,
District 12.
yeah, who knows? I mean, it's Appalachia, Rust Belt. I don't know. What do you want to call it?
Mhm.
It's Pittsburgh, whatever.
Just side note, attendees, like I lived in Pittsburgh for 6 years. Fantastic town, fantastic program. Y'all look into it. So speaking on that question, actually, like bigger picture, how do fellowship directors like y'all view applicants who completed both medical and residence in the same region, but they're looking to pursue fellowship elsewhere, especially if you don't have like a personal geographic tie to the area? Like, how can applicants best communicate that they're generally interested in the program itself and its unique training opportunities? So, actually, I'm gonna hand this question over to Tom first because I had no ties to Pacific Northwest, and then I applied to Seattle. So,
Yeah, I think that's kind of in a way a standard because fellowships 1 year, people come and go. I've had uh, both last year and the incoming class both have a person coming in whose partner is staying where they came from, and I know they're gonna, they're coming and then they're gonna leave. This is a huge value to fellowship. It's not gonna totally uproot your life, but you can get a diversity of experiences and I mean, I don't think that that sways any program director away. Like we know people actually often go to other places for this
Yeah.
reason.
I mean, being in Colorado, we get tons of visitors, as I'll call it, for both residency and fellowship, and even early career jobs, frankly. A lot of people come to live for a little bit, but I think the way to convey it is just like going back again a couple comments ago to what Tom said. Just you just tell us, and we can, if you're excited about something, it comes through. And if you've looked into our program and there's something specific and you've read about us, that comes through. Don't do, we had an applicant once who, I asked the standard, why Colorado, why our program? And they gave an answer that was so generic. I was like, oh, this actually doesn't barely applies to our program. And so I was like, that is not, we do give a good training experience in that, but it's not what we tout as sort of like what's special about coming to us. And so you don't want to do that. And so if you're just honest about what you're looking at, what you want, how we can help you in the next phase of your career, I think that'll do all the work for you. You don't have to do anything special with that.
Can I put an asterisk on what I said also though? Because people have to be careful because you might actually end up staying when you did not intend, and that happens to many, many people. So, you think you might leave, and then had that happen to a couple people this year actually.
Be ready. Be ready to stay.
um, very specific questions. Are there elective opportunities in pediatric CL psychiatry during the fellowship, or opportunities to spend additional time in the PED CL service for trainees interested in that area?
I think that'll be super program specific because of how funding works. And is there, are there pediatrics in your existing sites, or would this be a discussion of funding with a separate children's hospital? What I can say at University of Colorado is like on the university half of the year, that would be complicated because children's is a separate entity. We do take down to like 15 years old on our hospital service. But on our Denver Health half of the year, they do have pediatrics in their general hospital. And so their service does see kind of all age ranges. So I think that's a good thing. If you're really wanting that, you'll want to kind of look at which programs seem to have that relationship.
Yeah, we would have the opportunity to have somebody do a little bit of time over at Children's with the PCL service. And when people have ended up off cycle for a variety of reasons, they have spent some time, like a longer period of time over there, just for a variety, and so that they wouldn't overlap with new fellows coming in, et cetera. Yeah, so it is possible, I think, in places where there is a pediatric CL service.
I can comment on at Montefiore Einstein. We're able to create a PCL track for interested fellows. We haven't had an interested fellow in the last 5 years since I've been program director, so I'm waiting for the right person. So definitely check us out.
So I was going to ask, Pen, like, is this the sort of question that'd be great to like email a program director ahead of time, and be like, hey, I'm really interested in the program. Can y'all do this? All right. So, oh, this is an interesting question. I haven't had this in a while. Is there any disadvantage to working a few years as an attending before applying the CL fellowship?
I don't think that there's probably any like disadvantage from a program standpoint. I mean, I think like having some um, experience can be like very valuable to the program, to the individual like fellow, and then like if you're within a larger fellow group, to like the larger fellow group as well in terms of like the overall educational experience. There may be some personal disadvantage, and so I think that like some people do like think about that like choice for themselves differently. Sometimes for people it's just like what their how their life trajectory is taking them, and right after like residency, they might have different things that are going on in their life that make it difficult for them to pursue CL fellowship at that time. And so they decide to take a little bit of time and then return to CL fellowship afterwards. I think as we heard from Shandon, there are people that decide to do it because they're thinking about their career trajectory, and they are realizing that depending on like where they are in the country, there may be additional benefits to doing CL fellowship that they may have not considered when they were coming out of residency. But then it could be like very hard for people to be within the workforce and then decide to kind of like go back into training. And so I think for people who were thinking about that, I think it's just really helpful to kind of like talk to different people, talk to mentors, maybe talk to people who have done that before, to make sure that you're making a decision that seems right for you.
There have been people who have like needed to fulfill their military service, for example, and then gone back and done fellowship afterwards. I think when we've had people come and interview, the biggest question has been, are they really dedicated to doing a fellowship? So I think the question that comes up when people, for whatever reason, choose not to do fellowship right away out of residency is, why is it that they've made that choice, and are they truly dedicated to CL as a career and to being a fellow for a year? Because I mean, it's hard to be the one who's an attending and in charge, and then take a step back and act as a fellow under an attending afterwards. And so I think that's the biggest question that comes up, at least has among our interviewing attendings when we've had people who have done that. And so that would be the thing to be thinking, the question to answer while interviewing, if that's a choice that people decide to make.
Oh, this is a fun question. Would you recommend visiting your institution prior to applying? And if so, do you offer opportunities such as away rotations, open houses, or other ways for prospective applicants to learn more about the program?
We do away rotations.
I think, honestly, just like you said, Chandan, in your presentation, if you're interested in any particular program, just send that email, send that blank email, ask whatever question it is you need to ask, or maybe ask to connect with specific people like the current fellows or incoming fellows or the program director and ask whatever you need to ask. A lot of programs are doing virtual open houses ahead of them being able to view the applications. I mean, I'll plug ours, which is happening tomorrow, if anyone wants to join. But, I know a lot of programs are doing that where you're welcome to come and ask any specific questions related to the program. And I believe to visit institutions that needs to be after the rank list is certified, if I understand correctly.
Or the people making the decision just have nothing to do with the visit.
Yes, exactly.
So I'll also just say from the UT Southwestern Dallas standpoint, a lot of people want to come and visit Dallas just because they'll interviewed virtually and they just know nothing about Dallas. I can sympathize because part of the reason I'm in Dallas right now is because I met my now like wife during COVID. I was in Chicago before. I never thought about moving to Texas. And then I met this nice girl and she was in Dallas. And I was like, what is Dallas? Is it like King of the Hill? Over like cowboy boots and horses and stuff. And so it was just nice to go in person and see the place. So we run into that a lot. So we have specifically a second look for our program where applicants can just come and see the hospital in Dallas, but we specifically make it so that it doesn't violate the rules of ACLP in the match where anybody involved in the second look isn't involved in the decision-making process. And a lot of programs may do this, and they'll just have set their rank list already. So it may affect where you rank us, but we're taking steps to make sure it doesn't affect what we think of you before we set in our rank list. Are you all kind of doing similar setups if you're doing second looks at your programs?
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Go check out the place where you'll be living, more importantly than, frankly, all hospitals kind of look the same. And you can't tell how the culture by just like walking through and in, whatever. But so
Yeah, we do where we will submit our rank list and then people can come visit after that, or we certify that we're not going to change it. So, and then yeah, people can come visit.
Yeah, just to piggyback off of Tom's point, I think like the biggest indicator about whether a place is going to be good for you or what the culture is like is probably going to be talking to as many people as possible that might be affiliated with that program or division or department, as opposed to like seeing the hospital itself, because many of the hospitals do look alike and have a lot of the same things. But I think that if you can kind of, if you have the opportunity to focus time on trying to reach out to like past fellows, current fellows, faculty, and like really get a sense of what the training is like there and what the culture is like. That's probably going to be the biggest bang for your buck in terms of like trying to figure out if that program is a good fit for you.
All right. No, thanks, panel. Ooh, so I was like, hoping you had some questions about this. How are programs planning on using the individual program signals this year? We have three now for our field. So how do we all plan on using those?
Maybe I can start and then other people can join in. So signals are a new thing for us this year. And so I think for many programs, we're still trying to figure out how they might be most useful. But I think for a lot of programs, it's going to be primarily most helpful during the application review part, and try and giving programs like an idea of which applicants have specific interest in their program and may like help with how they decide to go about their interviews. I mean, like we said before, like most programs like end up interviewing like most of their applicants. So I think like this is like particularly going to be like a tool that is going to be like useful for programs who may be smaller, programs who might be in like certain parts of the country, and really like helping identify the applicants that are like helpful for them. Yeah, and then if other people have things to add, I felt like there was a second part of the question, but I forgot.
yeah, I agree. This is it, I think it's going to be experimental. I suspect it won't make a huge impact, frankly. But yeah.
So, a question came in. Would you suggest reaching out, emailing PDs separately while playing the same program through ERAS? So again, I initially made that advice because this was back in the time before we even did ERAS like as a field. So now, not as much a need, but is it still helpful to email like programs, just be like, hey, BT dubs, I'm applying to you by ERAS. Love me.
I think if you're really passionate about a specific program and you haven't heard back from them, then let them know. But chances are they'll probably invite you for an interview regardless. And I mean, it doesn't hurt, but you might not need to, frankly.
Yeah, no, I would send an email because at least for us last year, there was some snafu where we didn't get into ERAS. Our GME office, UPMC wide GME office didn't do whatever they needed to do to turn us on in ERAS so that nothing was actually getting to us. And so it was only because people emailed me and said, "Hey, what's up?" That I was able to find out and tell the GME office that we weren't in ERAS this year. So please do reach out. It's lovely to hear from you.
We had something similar happen in Colorado where it was, yeah, an applicant tipped us off. And we had actually, our program's been on ERAS for like ages. And so we were like, what do you mean we're not showing up? Like we've just been there like every year for, even when I was a fellow, I had applied through ERAS. So I second that. It can be helpful. You don't have to put a lot, it doesn't have to be a very fancy, beautiful, long email, but an outreach is helpful.
So actually related to that, Dr. Fountain, like again, like a lot of these questions like have a lot of anxiety about like, hey, how do I stand out? How do I get noticed? How to get programs to appreciate how much I care about them? Just in terms of just like like metrics, right? Like for residency, we're getting hundreds, sometimes thousand applications. Like, what's your like scale of like generally like how many applicants you get for like a program of like one or two or three fellows? Like, are we talking hundreds of applications? Is it like dozens maybe? Like it's just my understanding is there's just scale is just completely different.
Yeah, I can talk about scale. So our residency program, which is one of the, I think, second largest in the country or largest, it kind of goes back and forth between a couple programs, gets over 1,000 applications and they usually interview about 100-ish people. Whereas our fellowship usually gets around 30-ish and we usually interview about 20. So, 1/10 versus like 2/3. So it's, dramatically different in terms of scales.
Yeah, I think it's similar in Colorado. We got, we're a little bit of a smaller program, and I think we got 20 something applications last cycle, and we did interview most of those. And so we are able to actually kind of go through and read, we don't have to use something like a step one score to screen applicants out.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think our residency program gets about 1,200 and the fellowship gets about 15, and we interview almost everybody, probably more like 12, but yeah, so it's a huge difference. And there's somebody, oh no, there was something. Oh yeah, so somebody had been asking about step 2 and 3 scores. I'll say I really don't care about what your test scores are, unless there's something else about your performance in residency that shows some kind of knowledge deficit. I just don't care. You might be a bad test taker, but or you had a bad day or whatever it is. But unless there's something else that says that you don't know the basics of what we're doing here, I feel like that's the least good indicator of your actual knowledge of everything that we've got. So we have so many other indicators that are so much better and that are not nearly as biased against people who are not white and otherwise advantaged, that the test scores are the least of my worries when I'm looking at an applicant. So I wouldn't sweat it too much.
Speaking of advantage, name and stuff, great question just came in. Any advice, panel, for applicants from community residency programs, like rather than like academic programs?
I think that's where things like really kind of finding ways to just show your interest, whether you're involved in ACLP, kind of being able to share some of the clinical experiences you did have, even if this or, I think that's where we can kind of see like, oh, you genuinely are like really interested in this work. How do you, what are you really trying to get out of this? We've definitely taken people, we are, a large academic program, and we have definitely taken people whose goal was to go back to community afterwards. And we do have a community track in our residency. So we kind of navigate both. Like I'm not necessarily looking for an applicant that has a super long CV who wants to do a ton of research and publications and wants to become the next, president of ACLP. That's not necessarily what I'm looking for. I'm looking for someone who wants to hone the skill set, join the field, help care for patients. And that's definitely can be as legitimate as someone who wants to go into academics.
Totally agree. And another direction that sometimes is challenging if you're coming from a community program is you might not have access to somebody who's CL boarded or a CL fellowship associated. And in those circumstances, the CL world is actually very tiny, and chances are your program director knows somebody who is, from their residency class who is CL boarded and stuff and can connect you. So I would reach out to your program director and let them know your interest, and they will connect you with people. The other opportunities are what Chandan pointed out through ACLP and through their mentorship program, and frankly, emailing any of us, and we can put you in contact with people in the region or whatever region you want to be in for advice. I always offer to meet with people, kind of even aside from my role as a program director, just like if you want to learn about CL and like regions of the country and programs that might be applicable to you. Like I said, the programs, I mean, the CL world is really small and we kind of know each other pretty well and can be like, hey, if you're looking at women's mental health, you might think about this program or that program. You know, we each have our unique strengths and so forth.
Yeah, my feeling is, are you excited about CL psychiatry? Then that's great. This, if is this what you want to do, then that's something that we can work with. If you want to be an excellent CL psychiatrist, you don't have to be an academic to be an excellent CL psychiatrist. You may want to go back and serve a rural community or teach CL in a community setting, or any number of ways to practice CL psychiatry that's not in a big academic center. Our program might not be the best place for you to do that, but we would still be excited about it. And so again, we may try to find other places that might be better for you, or you might decide that we would be a good place for you to learn anyway. And we would be excited to have somebody like that and train to the best of our ability. It really matters that CL is something that you're passionate about. And then we would try to meet that passion to do what you wanted with it. So yeah, I think that's the important thing.
I agree with all the panelists, and I would say, someone coming from a community program may be very excited to go into a bigger academic program that would be different than the training that they've received. I guess one piece of advice, if someone's applying from a community program that does not have access to, let's say, a CL psychiatrist to write a letter of recommendation, maybe, give them the heads up to include that in their letter, or maybe include something in your personal statement to show that, to highlight that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sorry.
Oh, sorry. I guess maybe last thing that I add before we go on to the next question is that I think like everybody said, I mean, I think that like one of our main goals is to uh, increase the number of like well-trained and competent CL psychiatrists. And so I think that we recognize that there's going to be a chunk of those people who will stay in academics, and there will be a chunk of those people who will go off and like do other things, many of them within community hospitals or community settings. And a lot of the skills that you learn within CL psychiatry are one of the things that makes CL psychiatry so fantastic is that a lot of the skills that you learn are very like transferable to other sorts of positions that you might do, particularly when you're like thinking about like working in systems and like oftentimes in community work. There are challenges in systems that the skills that you learn within CL can be like very useful for. And then I think like as you're looking at different programs, there are going to be some programs out there that might be a little bit more community focused, but also like attached to academic centers. Our program, particularly at Brigham, our fellows spend part of their time rotating through a community hospital that is like affiliated with our academic center. Both of those places are both hospitals are like within our like larger academic department and are staffed by CL trained faculty, most of which have graduated from our fellowship. But it's like an opportunity during our fellowship to kind of like practice CL within that like smaller setting. And then there's another program within our city that is kind of our larger community hospital within the city and also has a fantastic CL program. And so there are a lot of different like opportunities out there, programs out there that might be a little bit more community focused if that is like an ongoing interest of yours.
Thank you all. This next question is, I'm actually going to start with Dr. Vaughn, and Dr. Vaughn, I'll explain why. If an applicant interviews at your fellowship program but ultimately matches elsewhere, does that have any impact on their chances of being recruited as faculty at institution late in their career? So example, Dr. Vaughn, you're in New York City, lots of programs there. If somebody interviews with you and they match at like Columbia, Mount Sinai, and then after a couple years, like, hey, I'd love to get a job at Montefiore Einstein, are you going to be holding a grudge from when they didn't match with you for CL Fellowship and be like, boo, you, I don't want you now?
This is the perfect question for me. How did you know that?
I'm just, I guess.
So I am not a grudge holder, and I think most program directors are not. We recognize that there's so many amazing programs and great places to learn how to train as a CL psychiatrist. If anything, I sort of keep my eyes peeled for people that I remember who were fantastic interviewers. And I'll often go back and look at my rank list and be like, oh yeah, I forgot his face, but we loved him and there was a reason why. So of course we want to interview him for a job. And I'll say that my service right now, I have two people who trained elsewhere and came to Montefiore, and I definitely remember them on their fellowship interview days. And if anything, I sort of think about it as they went somewhere else, they learned something new that I didn't have at Montefiore, and now they're just going to enrich my service with the perspective they gained in fellowship.
Thank you. Panel, any thoughts about that?
Totally agree. We're all greedy. We want we want everybody, and then we want, if we don't get them the first time, we'll get them, second time or third time is our hope. So
Yeah, my boss will ask me fairly frequently, hey, do you remember that person that we interviewed? I want to try to recruit them. So yes.
Right. Go ahead, Dr. Haji.
Oh, I was going to add, one of our awesome CL faculty members, Dr. Dan Maas, he did interview with us. He went to his CL program and ended up getting recruited. And he's amazing and we love him. But I guess ultimately, we want people to match where they want to match, right? I mean, the fit is what's most important and it's a year of training. So ultimately, if you interview with us and you end up elsewhere, great. We hope that you match where you wanted to match because it's a two-way street, right?
So I will say that it can be hard to appreciate, especially if you start the training stage, but like CL, especially academic CL, like is not a crowded field. So like everybody you're going to be interviewing with on all your interviews are people you could be potentially working with either at an institution or like on an academic project or a review article or presentation, something down the line. So more of the story, like be a nice person to everybody, because you never know who you're going to work with later. But also, like, it's exciting going to meet awesome people who you're going to probably see later in your life and get to work with them. So it's just like a great time to meet like cool people who are going to be in your field of view for like decades afterwards. So, ooh, this is interesting because it's changed a bit since like I applied in like the BC, like before COVID years. What is a typical timeline for y'all for like interview offers and scheduling? Are we like, you have to have your application in by the 15th, by the 16th, all interview slots are gone and you're just ruined for a year? Like, what's our timeline?
I guess for many programs, it's still on somewhat of a rolling basis, but I think we still do have the recommendation that try to get your applications in as early as possible. Just because those interview days are also being given out on a rolling basis, and then there, if you have constraints or particular days that you're like interested in, getting in early like allows you access to those days. There are going to be some programs that might have like a cutoff, a deadline for when applications can be accepted and reviewed. So just make sure that you're reading the program website or reaching out to programs to ask questions about that. But for us, like we will kind of like get applications like in different bulks. We'll get some like right around the application deadline, but then we'll get some later in the application season, and we're kind of like reviewing them up until our deadline, which is like very late. It's like October 1st. And then for us, we start like application or interviews in September. And then like many programs will go until like November, kind of like right before ACLP, and some programs will go like a little bit later. So our program actually interviews until December.
Also, actually, Adrian, because you're on my screen, if y'all start reviewing applications like once it opens on the 15th, does that mean that as long as people submitted by them, they're not at a disadvantage? Like, you're not going to be like, well, this person submitted it at
Oh,
12:01
yeah,
p.m. and this
yeah,
person submitted at 12:02. So the
yeah,
12:02
yeah.
person is done.
Not at all. I don't even know if there's probably a timestamp somewhere, but I don't know if I've ever recognized it. And I mean, to be honest, like, we do try to review the applications like first come, sort of situation. But like if an application was submitted within like the same, I don't know, like 3 or 4 days, like it's usually just going to be in the same batch that I'm reviewing. So no, it does not have to be exactly at July 15th, whatever release time it is for the program directors.
All right. All right. More questions coming in. Ooh, these are good ones. Good job, audience. Okay. So in viewing applications, whatever most important quality or experience y'all are looking for in an applicant, and what tends to distinguish candidates who are particularly good fit for your program?
I'll speak to this. I think somebody who's curious and loves to learn is really what one of the most important qualities about a CL psychiatrist, because there's so many different things you're going to come across. It's impossible to learn everything, which is one of the fun things about being a CL psychiatrist is constantly learning. And so that I think is one of the most important qualities. So enthusiasm for learning new things and curiosity about medicine.
I think for us, this kind of comes back to the very first question of like why even to do a CL fellowship. I think the additional components to the training that might not have been covered in as much depth in your residency would be, I kind of think of it as like three legs of a stool. And one is like uh, facilitating and mentoring you around developing your leadership skills. Another leg of the stool would be like you as an educator because you take a more senior role and you have typically like R2s working with you on the team and you're kind of the primary person as an educator there. And then in the role of advocacy as Dr. Kandai kind of pointed out, our role as a CL psychiatrist is not just advocacy in the kind of more population-based or global aspect, but also individually, we're often the first person or first psychiatrist that a patient might meet. And then also we're kind of like the forward-facing component of psychiatry to our colleagues in medicine and surgery. And for that, all those reasons, I think, a lot of people in CL really advocate for, the CL psychiatrist being especially well trained and think about how we present ourselves and how important that is for addressing biases in mental health treatment.
Yeah, I think we're also looking for people who are interested in systems level issues, and particularly like how systemic bias is like propagated through medical systems, and how CL psychiatrists can help to mitigate that bias, and to whatever extent we're able to protect patients from that, and use whatever tools are at our disposal to equalize the playing field as much as possible. So we're certainly looking for people who are interested in equity and social justice issues within psychiatry and within medicine as well.
I echo everyone's comments, and I would add two other things. The first is commitment to the patients that we serve. I know that everyone thinks that their patients are the best, but the Monty Einstein patients are truly the best. And they deserve our deepest thinking, our, our kindness. They deserve it all. And so I'm really looking for fellows who are going to bring the maximum amount of humanness and kindness to the bedside. That's the first one. And then the second one that I would add is, CL is really a team sport, especially in the hospital, but also in the outpatient setting as well. And so I'm looking for folks who are going to be amazing team players who, are going to communicate thoughtfully and carefully, folks who are, going to pull their weight on the team, be thoughtful of the other folks on the team, and sort of like be the best ambassador for psychiatry around the hospital, and make sure that we keep our good name and reputation. All of those things really matter, and how they'll interact with junior trainees matters as well. I think someone mentioned teaching, but just being a mentor, being a team leader as the fellow, those are really important components as well.
Thank you. Oh, ooh, this next one's a spicy question. I wish I had asked this when I was applying for this. Odds of retaining fellows as faculty. And if positions are not available upon completion of fellowship, are the graduate fellows given a priority if a position arises? So first, let's just talk about the mechanics and politics of that.
Short answer is yes, I think. I mean, my boss, who is in charge of hiring people, often will come to me and be like, "Hey, how are the fellows looking? Who can we keep?" And they're really recruiting. I think that's probably ubiquitous. I think this last year was a little anomalous because there was really big questions around funding and insurance issues. But I think that was a one-off, and that was kind of challenging, I think, for all graduates this last year. But I think they certainly get a priority.
Yeah, I would echo that. I mean, CL graduates are very competitive and very attractive to programs because they can do anything. They really have a broad expertise, and in an academic setting, they're very desirable candidates.
Yeah, I think that the skills that CL fellows gain can be used in a wide range of different roles, and kind of similar to Tom, I think that we start to have those like conversations like early in the year, and kind of the conversation of, particularly when we're starting to think about like budgeting and starting to think about like who we can potentially recruit and who we can hire, what we can build around folks, and so I think like sometimes that doesn't always look like maybe what you're doing day to day as a fellow, but oftentimes that means that we have some flexibility to kind of like build something around somebody that might make the most sense for them. I think like but that will obviously fluctuate depending on like what's happening across the hospital system and across your department financially, and what the openings look like and all of that.
Yeah, I found that usually around, a little bit after the fellows take the boards, then, jobs come into mind because now they're done with the boards and now they're thinking about what's next. So that's usually around the time of the fellowship where in our kind of mentee mentor meetings, we start to talk about jobs. And if they're interested in staying, then we, connect them with the leadership and the chair and see if there's any openings. If there isn't and they're still interested, I always recommend, stay in touch, not just with me, but also with the chair, also with, the people who have the budget who do offer jobs, not me, unfortunately. And we've had some good luck with that.
Yeah, I think this is pretty common. Like at Colorado, we have a really, between the residency and fellowships, we retain a lot of people onto faculty. That's a big culture thing there. And so, yeah, I always encourage the fellows to let me know early. I even bring it up at orientation. I'm like, if you're thinking about it, like let's talk about it. You don't have to commit to anything, but don't do this thing where you come to me in April or May and the budget's set. I can't advocate for you very well in May, but I can in, earlier in the year.
Yeah, we start recruiting early. This year seems to be the earliest we've ever started recruiting the fellows because they've already started recruiting the fellows who aren't even here yet. So that's as early as it's ever gotten. But yeah.
I do want to mention one thing that I'm an IMG, and I feel like if you're someone who's also an IMG and you're looking for like an H-1B sponsorship or something, then definitely start very early. I mean, maybe earlier than when you start fellowship, even to kind of start those conversations, because that is kind of a lengthy process to put together the H-1B application. So that's worth considering to do early.
So actually, Dr. Haji, so that segues into our next question, which is, I love it. Like, is it fair to ask about future job opportunities at the program that an applicant is interviewing at? Like, is that looked at a certain way? Like, how early should we be having this conversation?
I mean, you can, yeah, I don't know. It depends on how you ask the question, I guess. But I think it's that's like, I think it does show. I mean, obviously, it shows you're very interested in the institution and the region, so that's positive. I think, but also, understanding how hiring at these sort of institutions works, especially like academic centers where our budget, like the budget cycle is a very bizarre thing. I don't know about other places. And so even if I do have a job open at the time that you're interviewing to be a fellow, the odds of that job, it just depends. And so so I think what I find applicants maybe find more helpful is like, yeah, what is your history of retaining like your fellows? Like what is sort of that track record? Where do your fellows go after they graduate? And that's sort of in the same realm, right? And like is your department like actively hiring? Do you think there will be work and CL related things? I think those kind of questions all are fair game at an interview.
Yeah, I find people usually ask, does your department tend to retain its fellows? And that's a perfectly reasonable thing to ask.
All right, so Dr. Fader, so just how to frame it, like, hey, if I'm just like interviewing a few fellows, like, hey, does your program tend to retain fellows?
Yeah.
Just frame it like that?
Yeah, and then I would say, yeah, but most, the fellows who have wanted, I would say the fellows who have wanted to stay have had an opportunity to stay, and then some will say, well, how many of them? And I'm like, sometimes an applicant can push too much, and you'd be like, well, how many years do you want me to go back? And et cetera, et cetera. But, so you can push too much, but, the other also, what do your fellows tend to do after graduation? That's another good one. Yeah, but will you have a job for me is a question I can't answer, as you were saying. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have jobs for anybody, but
no, I like that, Cafe. Like it's very quiet.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what do fellows tend to do after like fellowship?
Right.
It's like demure, very mindful, but
Well, they go to Disney World and then no.
I think what Dr. Fader might be also like kind of suggesting to someone, like lots of programs, a majority of programs are two fellows or one. So like the statistics around them are really tricky, So it's just like, oh, we haven't retained anybody in the last 2 years. Well, that's two people sometimes. So it's like kind of an unfair question to some degrees why pushing might not be super productive, but also like you can look at, I think maybe more applicable data might be the residency, because the residency will show how much like what the culture is in a way. Like, do people actually want to stay, frankly? And usually residency, fellowship have similar kind of vibes amongst them.
And I mean, we can always say, well, so and so, so and so, and so and so that you met with today were all fellows in the program. that should be enough. But yeah.
So shifting gears a little bit, now starting to talk about questions about like how to like prepare ourselves, like both like current applicants, but also like people like PGY1, 2, like thinking about CL. Like first, like the conference, like how beneficial is it to introduce like ourselves at conferences to y'all?
Nice to put faces to names personally. We're reading so many applications. I mean, not that many, not like residency, but like enough where it's like, yeah, when I get that email, when you come up to me, I'm like, oh, and it's nice to get to connect in real life because we know over Zoom is not the same. So I like it when applicants introduce themselves to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I really like meeting people at conferences and talking to them. I think that's one of the things I like about ACLP in this community, is you really get to know people across the country, because it is a small world. So yeah, I would definitely start that process of getting to know people. I think that's great. But you're in the driver's seat as an applicant too, so I think you can feel confident. You're as he showed with the numbers, you really are in the driver's seat with these applications. So shouldn't feel anxious or pressured about, oh, I've got to meet all of these people at the conference.
And it's worth mentioning that the ACLP conference is in November, and oftentimes people are done with their interviews already by then, and might have already created the rank order list. So also, I tell people that they should go during their third year to ACLP if they can, because then they can meet the program directors earlier, and it probably, frankly, have more impact. Um,
So actually, Dr. Brown, that brings up a question that got pre-sent, like, hey, during like early on in residency, like PGY1 and 2 and like 3, like what are things that CL interested people should be doing to kind of expand their interest in the field and also strengthen their application?
yeah, I think more than strengthening your application is figuring out if you want to do it. And I think just going to ACLP is the best way. You get to get a feel for the group of people, right? You'll find your tribe there, or you might not. And then both outcomes are good information.
If you have a CL interest group in your residency, that's another thing. Trying to think of, I mean, PGY1 and 2, there's not a lot of extra time there. So.
Yeah. I guess maybe just to echo Tom's point, I think like a big part of it is just like figuring out if this is the field for you and if this is the training that you want to do. And so I think a lot of your experience are going to be driven by that. And so that might mean like doing electives within CL or areas that are maybe CL adjacent to help you decide, like particularly if you're like, thinking between different things. There are also like different types of fellowships as well. And so it might like help you distinguish between whether you want to go into CL or other fellowships, although like CL is very broad. And so a lot of times like CL kind of like covers a lot of those like spaces within like other subspecialty training. And then I think like other things that just can kind of like help you decide if this is like the training that you want to do, the field you want to go in, is like getting involved in mentorship programs like through the ACLP, talking to people who are doing the work now, getting involved in projects, presenting at conferences. Those sorts of things can kind of help you really distinguish like how you see your career moving forward, but then also like open doors into like subspecialty interests for yourself, which can then like help narrow down like specific programs that you might be interested in applying to.
And if you're able to moonlight in your program, moonlight for the CL service. You'll see a lot of cases.
I'll also add to what everyone's saying, like a lot of times there's like awards, like honorary fellowships, which can help you explore like CL outside of your institution. So for example, like just to tutor horn, like Dr. Taylor, like in her PGY2 year got like also playing the APA, like an APA leader, like diversity leadership fellowship. So she actually got to serve on the APA CL Council, which I'm chair of now, and like got to do cool things like work on a QT prolongation, like resource document, and like be co-author on a paper of a lot of our institutions, and really got to meet a lot of other cool people that way. If you join like ACLP, like there's these SIGs, like special interest groups, or like subspecialties, like psycho-oncology or women's mental health. We can oftentimes, both at the conference but also outside of it, talk about interesting cases and get to be a potential like co-author, co-presenter on like conferences at ACLP and like APA and even other conferences like Mono or like the European like C-L Society meeting. So I think there's a lot of stuff out there. You just have to be like open to the opportunity. I guess like moving forward to like PGY 4 year panel, are there any experiences you'd want trainees to do to be a well-prepared fellow? Like, should it be doing like all the CL like elective, like their 4th year to prepare for fellowship?
No, 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 don't do that. Please don't do that. You're going to get that in fellowship. Do the things that aren't CL that you won't have an opportunity to do, particularly if you have access to a developmental disorders clinic. Please, please do that. That was the best thing I did in my PGY 4 year, honestly. If you can do like a substance use disorders clinic, if you haven't already done it, do as much substance use as you can do. Well, sorry, don't do as many do as much substance use disorder as you can do. And yeah, do a lot of stuff that's subspecialty that's not CL, so that when that comes up in the hospital, you will feel comfortable with it. But particularly developmental disorders, because the overlap of that and CL is huge, but it's a separate thing. And so, yeah, totally, that would be my biggest recommendation.
I think to be a good CL psychiatrist, you have to be a good psychiatrist, right? And so we want you to kind of come in with those skills that we're not going to focus on. And yeah, I always like we're specialists, but we're like generalist specialists is how I think about CL sometimes, right? Like the number of things I cover on my service compared to some of my really specialized outpatient colleagues is really vast. And so it's like having a good grasp of general psychiatry is very helpful.
I would say though, if you're planning on for sure moving for fellowship away from your program, and if your program has these super niche specialized CL clinics or something, then take advantage of them during your residency and do them before you move away. Like, for example, we have an integrated clinic for human trafficking that people can do in their 4th year, or perinatal substance use, or whatever your institution offers, right? That it might be worth taking advantage of that before you move away to a different fellowship program elsewhere that may not have those opportunities.
My bias for 4th year, if you can do it, is to be a chief resident. I think that is such a valuable experience and something that we can really build upon in fellowship that we can't really replicate in the same way in fellowship.
And then technical question for you. If someone has transferred residencies, do y'all expect letters of recommendation from both program directors or just the more recent one?
I think it may depend on when exactly that transfer happens. Like, say, if the transfer happens like right before you putting in your application, then it may be beneficial for you to include a letter from both the current program director, the program you're going into, and the program director who you were for the majority of your residency. But if that transfer happened like in the 1st year, then the program director who is with you during your 4th year is like likely going to know you well enough to be able to write you a strong letter.
All right, we're going into the last 5 minutes. Panel, again, thank you so much for joining. I wanted to ask y'all one last question for each of you. Just a chance to plug your program. Calling y'all one by one. What's one thing you really like about your fellowship that you'd want applicants to keep in mind when applying to you? So first, Dr. Taylor, Brigham Women's.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that makes our program special, or that we really like about our program, is we do offer a larger fellowship program, and like within that larger class, we have the opportunity to offer two tracks. And one of them is kind of like a more general CL track, and the second one is a more subspecialized psycho-oncology track. I think the nice thing about those two tracks, and then just that the fact that we have the larger class, is that a lot of the experiences are combined and kind of like shared amongst the fellows. And so although the fellows have this opportunity to like really engage in like subspecialty training, and the general track has some ways to do that as well. It is really this like nice like collective like learning experience within the larger CL class. And it's really like nice opportunity to learn about inpatient care, outpatient care, as well as like really focus on like administrative work, systems work, and education.
Okay. All right, thank you. Just seeing who's on my screen first. Dr. Al-Haji, Miami.
Miami. Okay, so the one thing, because I have to choose one, is how diverse the program is in terms of faculty and their backgrounds and their interests and their niches, their training experience, but also how diverse our patients are. You know, fellows do train across 3 different hospitals. One of them is a private hospital, which is UM. One is the Psych Oncology, Sylvester Cancer Center, and then we have Jackson, which is one of the biggest county hospitals in the country. So you definitely, as a fellow, get to see a wide breadth of cases. You know, bread and butter stuff, right? Delirium, adjustment, etc. And then, you know, very specific and very subspecialized, whether it's burn, HIV, etc. So there's the inpatient experience and also outpatient, you know, HIV, transplant, psych oncology, and like I mentioned earlier, human trafficking, perinatal addiction. So it's very diverse.
Thank you. Dr. Soprano, University of Washington.
They're stealing all the good answers. Can I mash up Dr. Taylor's answer about like, I think it really is about the relationships that, you know, form amongst the fellows. We get 4 fellows and we also have an onc track, but I think it's, you know, the time we get to spend together collectively and learning from each other is super important on top of what Lujan was just talking about, this diversity of experiences, having like the 3 different hospitals of like community hospital, university hospital, VA hospital, and then we have like 9 outpatient specific CL clinics where you get into like the niches of those areas. So you get that diversity in both realms. I think that's why people tend to come, but I think the reason people stay is ultimately for those relationships and the mentorship that's formed over the year. So
Thank you. Dr. Smith, Virginia.
So we have a brand new program, and I think one of the things that we are so excited about is our community of CL psychiatrists. We've been laying this foundation for years and really dreaming about this fellowship. And so there's just a ton of enthusiasm for this fellowship and a lot of buy-in from our faculty to make it a fantastic experience. So I think that's one of the things that really sets us apart. We also have a fantastic critical care experience, critical care psychiatry experience that I think is unique and really strong. But I think really our community, and I know everybody else will say this too, because it really is, the CL world creates great community. But I think that's one of the things that I love about our program at the University of Virginia.
Awesome. Dr. Font, Colorado.
I hate going this late already, but so this is gonna sound similar, except if you want, you know, kind of like what Miami has with this like nice balance between community hospital safety net, which we have at Denver Health, and our fancy university side with all the subspecialty exposures, but you want it in the mountains and you want to ski and hike, we kind of have that in Colorado. But also, if you just want to learn about psychiatry in a super supportive environment with a chair that's obsessed with C-L psychiatry, then I recommend Colorado.
Awesome. Dr. Fader, Pittsburgh.
I'm not sure what's left. So I guess I'm going to be, we've got almost a brand new hospital right, almost outside my window. So, and a brand new EMR, which will actually be up and running by the time the next class of fellows arrives. But seriously, we have amazing colleagues that you will be working with. It's a class of 2, not a class of 4, but we have the usual suspects in terms of outpatient clinics, plus some really unique things like a Huntington Disease Center of Excellence. We also have experiences available in Lewy body dementia. And for the, not this current year upcoming, about to be, but the next year that people will be applying for this in this cycle, will probably be instituting a burn psychiatry experience as well. We've recently added inpatient psycho-oncology to the outpatient psycho-oncology experience that we've got. So we're constantly growing and constantly responding to fellow feedback in order to make the program better than it already is. And it was pretty cool to begin with. So yeah, we respond to feedback. I guess that's the that's what we got.
Awesome. Last but not least, Dr. Vaughn, Montefiore Einstein.
I got the hardest slot, right? We got all what they said and a bag of chips at Montefiore Einstein. No. So what I'll say that is pretty unique about our program is that because most of our services are not, the fellows aren't playing a service role, they're really, the services can run without them. That means that we can be nimble and actually create more individualized experiences for fellows once they sort of get their sea legs and decide what they want to focus on. So while we have a reproductive psychiatry track and an infectious disease psychiatry track, in the middle of the year, I had a fellow who was like, psycho-onc is my passion. So we were able to create a psycho-onc track in real time and make sure that she got everything that she wanted out of that last 6 months of the fellowship. And so I'll say that we're able to be very responsive to the foci of our fellows, and we do it with kindness and lots of support.
Thanks all. Again, everyone, thank you so much for joining us for this. I'm just going to share the resources one more time for prospective applicants. So again, APA and ACLP, lots of great opportunities. Remember, the Training Travel Award and Web Fellowship are both due just in a few days on July 1st. In the meanwhile, please join ACLP and APA. And if you're on Facebook, the C-L Panel Facebook group to get more information. Very special thanks to the APA Council on C-L Psychiatry and Aaron Smith and Brooke Trinum, our APA staff. Aaron Smith has running this whole thing from behind the scenes, making this whole thing stay afloat. The ACLP Fellowship Education Subcommittee, ACLP DEIA, now the SAFE Subcommittee. Ken Prick and Andrew Kimball on ACLP staff. Dr. Samuel Greenstein for his insights, and our amazing panel. If you'll have any further questions, feel free to email our panel directly, or you can just email me as the moderator, chandan.kandai@gmail.com. On the left is my now 3-year-old son, just striking a pose, because apparently that's what he's doing at this age. You may hear him screaming downstairs. Don't worry, we're on it. But otherwise, thanks all very much for joining us for this year's panel, and good luck, and hope you join our field. See y'all. And let's stop recording. Panel, thank you so much for joining and giving your time and experience on this. It was so much fun.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very well done.
Thanks
Thank
for
you for including us. Thank you.